Hello and welcome to this edition of the Halcyon Show. My name's Lorne Wisely and I'm going to be your host for this episode. And on this edition, we need to start with some ground rules, people. Yes, in the last episode, I wore a t-shirt. Yes, big freaking whoop. Again, the suit was in the wash. Not a lot I can do about that, but rest assured, going forward, this is the attire. I like the way it looks. It feels luscious against my skin.
Help, help! Someone's reviewing a game without any whimsical jokes and going into far too much detail.
My God. There you go. Are you happy now? I'm in the t-shirt. Jacques, Cyril, anybody else that didn't like the suit, happy? There you go. I'm in the damn merch. I hope this puts a smile on your face. But nevertheless, let's skip all the stupid stuff and let's go on some serious matters, shall we? This is a serious review show for serious people. We're going to be talking about a game called Samurai Wish. Wait, what?
What the hell is this?
Yep, top-down shooter slash samurai game. The game was made by a gentleman by the name of Gregory... this is going to be a trick. Joerger. Gregory.
My name is Jeff.
Released on the 12th of September 2018, if I were be permitted to read the synopsis to you for just a second. Based on the Japanese folklore of the wish trees, you will have to grant the wish, moral or not, of anonymous people. Select your mission in the order you want and slain your enemies. I really like this game. Couple of things we need to get off our chest in the first instance. This is not a seamless experience. This is not an easy experience. This is not an experience that is necessarily the best crafted you're ever going to find. This is an experience that's necessarily completely 100% satisfying and gratifying, but there is a really fun game to be had here. If I may be permitted to refer back to my notes, Samurai Wish is a classic top-down action game. It's fast, fun, and straight to the core experience. Combat style is dynamic and intense. It's also challenging and requires reflexes. Your katana will let you dash at high speed. Your shuriken will let you shoot from long range. In case of desperate situation, you will flee like a mist, or use your katana to deflect bullets. Die, retry with all the tools that let you play as you wish. Approximately 4 hours for a first run. Let's try hard. Target audiences for those who love savagery and brutality, for those who love die and retry, those who love simplicity and efficiency, and for those who loved moral or amoral objectives. A couple of things I take issue with that. Number one, what is it with these developers and typo errors? I make typo errors occasionally in my videos. I'm a one-man band and I've got a million things to do along with making videos, like, I don't know, earn a living. If you're putting out a game for sale, the least you can do is just get someone to proofread everything before you release it, surely. And secondly, flee like the mist. I got my ass kicked royally in this game. I got shot to shit on a number of different occasions. I don't remember there being an option to disappear like the mist. That would have been really helpful in this game. So before we get to the gameplay, let's talk about the presentation, let's talk about the game's style, let's talk about how the game's put together. Now, right from the get-go, I'm going to tell you, again, as I mentioned, this is not a wholesome experience. There's a lot of blood, gore, a lot of violence attached to the game, all the good things in life. On top of that, though, there's a couple of, shall we say, production issues with the game. The one that stands out to me most is the music. Now, the music in this game is actually reasonably good. It's reasonably dynamic. And indeed, there's different songs for different missions, the menu screens, the intro screen, your hub, all the rest of that good jazz. The problem comes in playing the game. Now, the game, you're gonna die a lot. There's not, unless you're super skilled at this game, which I am certainly not, you're gonna die on a number of different occasions, meaning that these levels are gonna stretch out across a meaningful period of time. Sometimes, the soundtrack of this game has a moment where it goes, oh, wait a minute. I've forgotten what I am. Am I a pencil sharpener? Am I a fire extinguisher? Am I the latest proposal of the Trump campaign to ban migrants and other ethnicities from entering the country? No! I'm a soundtrack! Oh, I'm meant to be playing a song! Oh, damn it, I completely forgot. Sorry about that. Here you go.
A few moments later.
It's the darndest thing. The song will just stop playing for periods of time to the point where you think, is it broken? Is it broke? No, there it is. Okay, fair enough. What are you gonna do? Another thing about the presentation that's worth bearing in mind is the character themselves. I don't think they're given a name. I don't see it referenced in any of the material, and it certainly isn't referenced. You're just the you're just the samurai wish or the wishful samurai. I'm not too sure what the terminology would be, but it's because it's top down. All you have is the rice hat. Two problems with this. Number one, you never see any motion, not even just an arm swing or a leg swing or anything like that. You only see the sword kind of going forward and the shurikens. Why is there no room for an animation like that? All the other enemies have animations, so why can't you? And secondly, I'm not sure that the rice hat is Japanese. I'm pretty sure that's Vietnamese or Chinese at the very least. I know that there's Oriental variants of that same design, but I'm pretty sure it's a Vietnamese descent or origination. So the fact that you're a Japanese folklore hero and yet you've got an item that is not necessarily bespoke to that folklore is a little odd. And one of the things that's worth mentioning is the load times once you complete a game. It just sits there doing nothing for the longest time. So you fulfill the wish, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. You fulfill the wish. In fact, no, let's talk about that first. At the end of each level, you complete the wish. We'll talk about what that means in a minute, but you fulfill the wish. The game says you've fulfilled the wish, so now you have to head back to the entrance. It doesn't just end, it doesn't finish. You have to walk back to the entrance, at which point the music just cuts off completely at that stage. Nothing at all, leaving the most eerie thing, which is just, what am I supposed to be? Okay, well, I guess I'll go then. Okay, bye. And then once you've made it to the exit, the screen cuts to black and then nothing happens for about 30 seconds. I mean, nothing. Sometimes the music will kick in a bit sooner than you might expect, but nothing for a long time. And it's only that point that you get kind of the ranking screen. But
What? Why? Why?
it's clear that this game hasn't been put together 100% right. Not 100%. So there are some things that initially at least, when you come across these straight away, it's not hard to find these things, that put you off. The worst of these things, though, by a margin, isn't necessarily anything to do with the production value of this game. It's the configuration of the controls. They're so frustrating. You can't remap any of the controls, which means that some of the buttons, i.e. the spacebar, the shift button, and the control button, aren't easily accessible on the keyboard. Maybe this game is much better played on a controller, but then you've got the problem of, because it effectively acts as a twin-stick shooter, which always work better on PCs, except for in this game, because you can't remap the buttons, it becomes incredibly difficult to be able to perform even the most basic of moves and attacks unless you want to alter your strategy entirely. For instance, if you want to perform a Bushido, or whatever the hell the attack is called, basically it's the shift button. You can take out numerous enemies at the same time. You have to then move your hand to the shift button, which means then you can't necessarily change direction and control. When you've got a million enemies chasing you, and I mean a million, and some of them have got guns, and those guns shoot bullets. Mobility is of the utmost essence. I can't take my hand off of the directional buttons in order to do this. Maybe if you'd have allowed me to map it to the Q button, which is right there next to the directional buttons, I could then use that button. Same with the spacebar. I get that you only have so many buttons, and you only have so many attacks that you can fulfill with those buttons, so sooner or later you've got to start using other buttons. But would you at least give me the opportunity to remap the goddamn button to something I'm more comfortable with, please? Forget the samurai wish, I'm feeling more like a vengeful Ronin at this point. But nevertheless, let's try and get this review back on track. So we have bounced around a little bit here because there's a lot that initially really pissed me off about this game. But then it started to win me over. And here's how. A couple of things from the get-go. This game is packed to the brim with very, very nice little touches. And the game doesn't necessarily reveal everything to you initially, at least. But you can. The thing I loved most about this game once I discovered it is that the levels are already open. You can click on the 10th level if you have. I believe there's 10 levels in total. You could just go to the hardest one if you want to. I made the mistake of clicking on the 7th just randomly and oh my days did I get f***ed up. So if your skill level is good with these kinds of top-down twin-stick shooters, you can just go right to the forefront and battle the worst of the worst right away if that's what you want to do. Also, again, some of the tinier details, such as the details in the environments, very, very nice. Every level seems fleshed out and well designed, with the exception of another problem with the mechanics, which is that you catch on walls, but maybe that's a programming issue. It's just frustrating when you're trying to run away and you get caught on a wall and someone shoots you or punches you and you die instantly. Bit of a pain, but nevertheless, the environments are very well designed. Again, the soundtrack is diverse. Every level has its own theme music. Every level has its own sound design to a certain degree, and it has its own henchmen and layout of henchmen. You can press the control button to be able to look over the entire environment, which means you can plan your attacks more thoroughly than perhaps other games or other twin-stick shooters, which just kind of chuck you in and say, right, you figure out a way to deal with this. But the overall aesthetic is actually really, really nice. Even the fact that the samurai, you can't see him, the design of him is still quite cool, and I will admit the attacks are quite cool. The fact that when you throw shurikens, there are infinite numbers of them, which means that the shurikens effectively act as like a gun, but you know, whatever. The fact that the shurikens continuously stick to walls, so no matter how many you throw, they all stick in the walls, that's actually really cool because it's just more evidence of your carnage. I also enjoy the fact that the baddies, the henchmen, the do-gooders, the riff-raff, if you will, whenever you kill them, they just die and fall over. Sometimes if you hit them with an attack, they'll just sort of stand there in place like this, and then they'll fall over and die, usually having emptied most of their body weight and blood onto the floor, a la Kill Bill. Occasionally you also get limbs chopped off and thrown, carelessly across the ring. You'll also be able to deflect bullets. Now this brings me on to the next thing that I really adore about this game. The gameplay, once you get used to its pace, and once you get used to its quirks and its mannerisms and how hard it can be at times, is so much fun because they do hit on the essence of what being a samurai is, and that's being able to use your samurai shit. Sometimes it's not about sneaking around. Sometimes it's not about carefully weighing up the odds and playing the attack. Sometimes it's just about shing, come at me, brah. You just run in, sword are swinging, shurikens are flying, dash pacing, budokai, or whatever the hell it's called. I must learn that word before the end of this review. But the point is, you can just unleash all-out attack if you want to, even when you're being fired at by guys with Uzis and guns and all the rest of it. So long as you can time your attacks and you can goad them in, it's never a problem. The shuriken will allow you to equalize against guns, and if someone does get the drop on you with a gun, so long as you're quick enough, you can actually deflect the bullet back with your sword, which is all kinds of superhero comic book samurai amazingness. And let's be honest with ourselves, who can really hate on a game that has infinite shurikens and the ability to deflect bullets? It's dope-tastic. Now, one small caveat. The only thing I would have maybe added to this game in terms of a core mechanic, because I think this game, more than maybe other twin-stick shooters, not only would have suited it, could have benefited from it. Stick Matrix, a game that was featured on Newgrounds, and I feel like a couple of other websites back in the day, was basically predicated on you as a stick figure taking on up to 4 agents at a time. Now, this would have been insane, considering that the agents were programmed to be a bit quicker than you and with AI that is just focused on taking you down. However, the game afforded you the ability to be able to go into slow-mo or super slow-mo by just pressing the spacebar, X, or, I don't know, being able to remap the buttons. Nevertheless, that mode enabled you to equalize, so you could not only avoid attacks more easily, it meant that you could coordinate your attacks against 4 people simultaneously more easily. It also meant that you could dodge bullets. It meant that whenever someone pulled out a gun, just like you could, just like they could, except for there's 4 of them shooting at you potentially at one time, you had an opportunity to dodge the bullet. In this game, considering the amount of gunfire that you do come under, and it only takes the 1 bullet to kill you, This game could have benefited from at least one of those two modes, if preferably not both, because it creates almost an artificial difficulty setting. If you want to just rock around in the super slow mode, you can do that. If you want to rock around in the slow mode, you can do that. It just means that in those initial levels where you're still trying to feel the game out, because not all the controls come easily, because again, it's not ergonomically designed, it means that you would have an opportunity to kind of break it in a little bit, get used to the slower enemies, get used to the odd guy with a gun before you walk into a room and every single person has a gun in the later levels. It would just help break players in just that little bit more easily, and more to the point, I think it would have really added to the aesthetic of the game, because again, the backgrounds, the characters themselves, the carnage and gore that's on display here, it's all really well designed, and going into slow-mo would only help emphasize that fact. And touching on the gameplay again for a second, the fact that the respawn time, considering that loading screen by the way, and it takes forever, the respawn time is instantaneous. It takes you literally no time at all to get back into the game, which means that while it is very repetitious in terms of, oh god, I've got to start again, and you will feel so frustrated when you die, like a million times where you'll be shot by someone off screen. It's the most annoying thing in the world. But you're just chucked straight back in, and because the gameplay is so much fun, it's difficult to kind of hate on a game where the first thing you do on any given level is throw some shurikens through, take two dudes out, move into the next corridor, chop five downs down, cock five guys at a time. Hey, we live in a free world, you do whatever you want. But I chop five guys down at the same time. Then move into another room, there's another guy coming out with an Uzi, he starts chasing you. You then use the space to gain distance and then throw a shuriken back or to guide him into another way. You can even deflect the bullet back. It's so dynamic in its gameplay, and it's so fun in its gameplay, as opposed to something like She Wants Me Dead, where I felt like 9 times out of 10 the punishment just wasn't going to end, no matter how my skill level was, because it was so cheap. This game has a similar level of cheapness. It can't be argued that one bullet taking you down or one person punching you from out of nowhere can kill you, but it throws you straight back into the action. You have no limit to the lives that you can get, and it's fun taking those same guys out after time. You feel the mastery grow as you become more intimately knowledgeable of the level and how their movements are going to be and where they're placed. The caveat to that though is that this game has a ranking system, and it's part of its progression and its unlockables. You get a grade based on how you perform. Your performance is determined by how many people that you've killed in what way, so samurai strikes, shurikens, the Budokai or Bushoko or Bushudu or whatever it is. God, I sound unwoke when I say that, but I promise you it's just I didn't write the attack down. I was too busy fixated on those controls. You can also space and you can also deflect the bullets. All of those things will go into what your score is at the end. Trouble is that the amount of times you die on that level factors into your score, and oftentimes it can be as much as minus 9,500 when your score from just completing the level is something like 1,700. So, considering that I imagine you could probably get an A grade on some of these levels, I probably will never see a D grade, let alone an A grade. And what's annoying about that is that there are unlockables in this game. In the hub mode, if you will, which allows you to just kind of wander around an apartment, I imagine where you or your master or significant other are stationed, you have the ability to be able to go into a menu to customize the wishful samurai. But I do like the fact that this game has an ultimate progression system, irrespective of the fact that the levels are free reign. You can play them whenever you want. Each level has a set amount of targets or goals that you need to achieve, i.e. 5 samurai sword strikes, 5 shuriken kills, finish the level without dying, finish the level within a certain amount of time, all that good jazz, which means that the replayability value here is increased, even without the need of a high score leaderboard, as some of the games that I pontificate, please give me a leaderboard. This game, not so much. The competitive nature is only within trying to not only clear the level, but then to complete the level under those conditions, because some of those levels, especially the first one, feels actually, once you get to grips with the controls, reasonably straightforward to attain. But let's talk about the game's narrative for a second. There kind of is. I mean, every level begins with this kind of overview, this kind of narrative thing. I mean, just for a kickoff, you've got the menu screen, which kind of leads you into the game in some very over-the-top, old-school 1950s Japanese samurai movie vibe.
Here's the story of a samurai. Born in the clan of the Wishmakers. Born to being a word, apparently. He grew and learned the old art of fighting, as opposed to ancient, which would have sounded better. Increasing his strength and agility, like Batman. He fights for only one purpose. Fulfill people's dreams. Could have added a 2 at the beginning there. Samurai Wish. Samurai Wish.
But then every level begins in much the same way, from getting medicine from the lab, because of course there's only one laboratory in this world and it produces medicine, so that's good, to just rescuing someone from a gang of thugs, to shutting down a school because the teacher isn't very nice to the person, to shutting down production of a movie because a fan doesn't like the promo trailer very much. No! And that's the weird thing about the feel of this game. It rocks from sort of goofy and jokey to over-the-top serious from time to time. And again, the gore and violence is very, very profound, even though it is cartoony and the style of the game is cartoony. But it can't be argued that the narrative of the game bounces back and forth between the two, which makes for a dichotomy of vibes, but ultimately, it's a jovial game. It's a game that revels in its silliness to a certain degree. It's a game that embraces the coolness of samurais and allows you to be able to do a lot of cool samurai shit, but doesn't inhibit you with, oh, the responsibility, the darkness, the revenge, my family, you killed my family! Nope, none of that stuff. Just a samurai granting very painful, violent wishes. Overall, this game is fantastic fun. Again, counterintuitive to some of the other games that I've reviewed recently, even though this game is really hard as balls, and it really, really is, it's actually really, 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 really fun as well. The overall design, even though it's got its hiccups and even though it's got its downs, is still really good. And aesthetically, it stands out from a lot of other games. It's colourful, it's vibrant. There's not a lot of other detractions from the game that I can think to mention right now. In terms of a price point, it's £5, which equates to about $7 or $8, which isn't nothing. But again, compared to the value of, say, She Wants Me Dead, which is more expensive than this, and I would argue has less replay value than this, probably has a little bit less in terms of the ways of meaningful customization than this game, in terms of the animatics, this game has more of those, in terms of the variation of the soundtrack, this game has more of those. It's actually much better value when compared to that, and indeed some of the other games that I've reviewed recently, because yes, while they may be much cheaper, the production value can't be compared here. There's everything that I would like in a game like this here on display. So let's talk about some of the pluses again. The death animations, gory and excellent. The level designs, varied and challenging. The abilities and progression are absolutely wonderful. Again, a slow-mo mechanic would help with some of these levels, but not strictly necessary, and you can just iron out some of those typos and bugs, and you've got a really quality game here. One that I would be really excited to see a sequel for, if nothing else, to add to those abilities, in order to tighten up some of those glitches and bugs, in order to enhance the gameplay, even go big with some of the animatics and cartoons and stuff in the middling sections, or to give like an intro animatic with a samurai you see him walking up to this thing, sword in hand. Oh, it would just be so wonderful, wonderfully thematic for this kind of game. And my overall impression of this game is this. I walked in knowing it was going to be ball-achingly hard. It said so on the title. And it was. And I thought I was going to hate this game after the first half an hour or so with it. But god damn if it hasn't won me over, just because it does what any game should do. It is fun. It is rewarding in meaningful ways. It makes you feel like you've achieved something. It's well designed and it's just a joy to behold. Samurai Wish is going to be a game that I could recommend to almost anybody, barring those who really don't like a lot of violence in their games or need a poignant or even somewhat sensible narrative. But it's a game that twin stick shooters are going to love because it's got the shooting mechanic but a samurai element to begin with. People who enjoy that kind of motif, I'm a real sucker for anything that's Japanese oriented or thematic, because there's just something about it, like the old school animes. That bit in Kill Bill, as a matter of fact, the anime section is probably my favorite part of that whole film, just because it's so stylistic and the storytelling elements are so amazing. If you can incorporate some of that into this game, just take my money. And the kind of gamer that needs a challenge, but also wants to be rewarded for that challenge on a consistent basis. Unlike other games that just seem content to punish you and that's their selling point. Yay, we're so hard. This game, yes, is hard, but it will reward you for your patience and for your proficiency once you get better at the game. And as a result, I would probably recommend this game to pretty much anybody. It's a fun experience, reasonably cheap experience, a well-rounded experience, and just cool. I want to go play it now. I've now finished reviewing it, but I want to go play it now. I want to go f some people up. It's going to be so much fun.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
But before I go and, yes, I'm getting a little hot into the colour there, so before I go on a revenge-fueled quest, I want to thank you very much for watching this edition of the Halcyon Show. Samurai Wish, have you played it? It's been out for a while now, so perhaps you have, perhaps you haven't. What do you think? Do you like it in terms of a twin-stick samurai over-the-top game? How does it compare to something like Grand Theft Auto, which is the first example I can think of something like this, which has the shooting mechanic, and I think at one point had a samurai sword in it. I can't remember, it's been a while since I played that game, but what do you think? Are you a fan of these types of games? Are you a fan of the kind of game that pushes you? What's an example of a game that really pushed you to your limits as a gamer? Before I go, I'm sorry, just give me a second. Just give me a second. Just don't go anywhere.
A few moments later.
Now that is better. I'm sorry. Some things are just meant to be. And goddamn do I be looking good in this suit. Don't lie, you've all thought about it. Thank you very much for watching this edition of the Halcyon Show. Please like, share and subscribe and check out some of the other content I've been producing recently. One of my videos inexplicably got over 100 views in less than a day, so thank you very much for that. That was completely unexpected and very much appreciated. Also, by all means, go check me out on Defunct Games channel. We've been producing quite a lot of content over there, including Decides videos, quizzes. I hosted a game show that, an award show that imploded reality. So that was pretty cool. Also go check out some of the other content creators in the description below. They'd all deserve a like and a share and subscribe. Also feel free to go follow me over on Twitter. I'm usually talking about what I'm going to be producing going forward. So if you're interested in seeing what I'm going to be reviewing next, chances are you're going to get a heads up over there. So by all means, also I'm plugging a lot of other content creators and indeed game developers now, since I'm starting to get to know them pretty well. On this occasion, didn't get a chance to liaise with the developer. Unfortunate, but what are you going to do? In the meantime though, I've been your host, Lorne Risley. Please take care of yourselves. And I'll see you on the next edition of the Halcyon Show.